Audit of the fallen angels. In the aftermath of tragedy, the world often looks to government for relief, for leadership, for hope. But sometimes, even the angels sent to rebuild, fall. This is the story of the Fallen Angels Fund, a $12.8 billion federal relief initiative meant to rebuild flood-damaged towns across the U.S. Gulf Coast. Within 3 years, it became one of the most complex forensic investigations in American history. The birth of a fund. After the catastrophic floods of 2018, Congress approved the National Infrastructure Recovery Initiative, NIRI, a joint program between the Department of Housing and Urban Development, HUD, and state development agencies. The mission was noble: restore homes, repair bridges, and provide grants to struggling local economies. The public saw construction cranes and ribbon cuttings. But behind the scenes, much of the money never reached its intended destinations. By late 2020, journalists and watchdogs began asking one question: where did the money go? The red flags. In one Louisiana parish, a bridge construction project that received $62 million in federal funds was never completed. In Texas, $180 million earmarked for housing reconstruction went to a shell contractor that vanished after receiving payment. When auditors reviewed the state's expense reports, they found an unnerving pattern: identical vendor names appearing in multiple states, identical invoice numbers, and inflated billing rates. That anomaly triggered the involvement of the Federal Forensic Audit Bureau, FAB, led by forensic auditor Leah Grant, known for her unshakable integrity and precision. Following the paper trail, Grant's team began their investigation in Baton Rouge, where they examined the digital payment archives of NIRI. At first, it looked like a routine mismanagement issue. But as forensic analysts dug deeper, they discovered hundreds of ghost contracts, agreements for construction projects that were either incomplete or never started. Each fake contract had been signed off by mid-level agency officers, then funneled through an internal routing system labeled Priority Project Processing. But what made the fraud nearly undetectable was the use of real contractor IDs, stolen from legitimate businesses who never received the funds. The manipulation network. By tracing IP logs and digital audit trails, the team identified that many of the fraudulent approvals originated from within the state's Infrastructure Oversight Unit. One name kept appearing on authorization emails: Deputy Director Marcus Hallow, a longtime political appointee. When Grant's team requested his correspondence records, they were told they'd been archived and inaccessible. Days later, one of the FAB's field servers was breached, and parts of their financial data disappeared. It was the first sign that this investigation wouldn't just be about numbers, it would be about power. The whistleblower. An unexpected breakthrough came from inside. A low-level procurement officer, Diana Lopez, approached Grant privately. She had copies of secret memos between Hallow and several state contractors, detailing kickback agreements. In exchange for funneling project funds through fake shell companies, contractors paid 15 to 25% commissions to a network of politicians and government aides. Lopez provided encrypted flash drives, containing thousands of pages of falsified invoices, doctored spreadsheets, and email threads linking senior officials to offshore payments. The evidence was explosive. The confrontation. Armed with the new data, the FAB sought a joint investigation with the FBI's Public Integrity Section. But days before the warrant was executed, Grant's deputy auditor, Troy Willis, was nearly run off the road by an unmarked black SUV. The message was clear: back off. Still, the audit team pressed forward. Through forensic banking records, they uncovered $2.7 billion in diverted funds routed through a chain of shell entities, Gulflink Consulting, Martex Construction Group, and Atlas Recovery Systems. Each company existed only on paper, their bank accounts leading to a private investment fund in the Cayman Islands. The beneficiary? A trust linked to Senator Paul Raymond, the very legislator who had championed the fund's creation. The exposure. In December 2021, Grant's team presented a 400-page forensic report to the U.S. Attorney's Office. The findings implicated not only contractors but also members of Congress, state officials, and a sitting federal judge. But then something unprecedented happened. The U.S. Attorney in charge, David Caro, abruptly declined prosecution, citing insufficient admissible evidence. Insiders later revealed that Caro had attended private campaign events funded by Raymond's donors. Justice had been bought, or so it seemed. The turning point. Disheartened but undeterred, Grant leaked portions of the report to a Senate Oversight Subcommittee. The leak went viral, forcing the Department of Justice to reopen the investigation under federal oversight. Public outrage swept across the nation. Protesters filled the streets demanding accountability. Major networks began airing nightly exposés under the headline, "Billions Lost, Trust Broken." With mounting pressure, new prosecutors were assigned, and indictments followed swiftly. The prosecution. Over 47 individuals were charged, including Senator Raymond, Deputy Director Hallow, and several high-ranking agency officials. During the trial, forensic evidence took center stage. Grant presented a detailed visualization showing how relief funds moved through 16 fake companies before disappearing into personal offshore accounts. When cross-examined, Hallow broke down, admitting he had received $22 million in bribes, calling it political business as usual. The judge, unmoved, sentenced him to 30 years in federal prison. Senator Raymond received 40 years, marking one of the harshest corruption sentences in U.S. political history. The cost of truth. The victory came at a price. Auditor Leah Grant faced multiple threats, a defamation campaign, and was forced into protective custody after the trial. But she later told a congressional hearing, "If justice costs safety, we still pay it. Because the people we protect can't afford silence." The moral and call to action of the story. When power meets money, truth becomes the first casualty. Forensic investigation is not just about following the money, it's about defending the voiceless whose hopes were stolen along with every dollar. Every audit is a battle, not between numbers, but between right and wrong.